What's happening? What's happening, people? What's happening? Mind, body, soul. Check 1, 2. It's the Joe Dash effect. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. I'm in my zone. And this is episode 1 of the Joe Dash effect. And I created this podcast to spread healing through information, good conversation. And we talk about spiritual healing. We talk about emotional healing, physical healing. And it's just about sharing my network of amazing people with unique perspectives and who have done the studying, who have done the training, and we just come together and have amazing conversations. So I wanted to share this with everybody else as we all grow and evolve into 2021. I'm hoping that we can learn from each other and we can understand how to heal and make better choices. So it's the Joe Dash Effect podcast, episode 1, healing on everything, because that's what we do. So mind, body, soul check, because you got to check the mind, body, soul. Episode 1 today, we're going to talk about vitamin D. Yeah, vitamin D, very popular vitamin. A lot of people don't understand it. Some people just want more information. Some people do understand it, but there's some little gems that today I'm going to drop that they would find very, very useful. For people who've just seen me for the first time, I'm an author of the Melanin Effect book. I'm also a public speaker, educator, and I'm a intermittent fasting specialist. So I run a program every month where I teach people how to intermittent fast, help them reach their optimal health goals. And yeah, I'm passionate about it, and this is what I love to do. So today is just me, and I wanted to introduce myself to the people and really get to dive into vitamin D and what it is and why it's so important for people of all races, colors, and creed. Just so we can understand what this thing is, because we live in England, you know how that go. We don't have all the sunlight in the world, but with some information, we can navigate around that. So, vitamin D, what is it? What is exactly these vitamins? You've heard about vitamins before, that they're good for you, that people should be taking them regularly. So, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, right? And it's part of what they call I think it's called a what's it called? What's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? It's called it's part of a home steroids, right? Steroid group. It's part of a steroid group, right? So it also acts as a hormone. So actually, it's also a hormone. It's almost like a steroid hormone, right? And it gets into the nucleus of the cell. It stores itself in adipose tissue. So you find vitamin D storing itself in adipose tissues, fat cells, so to speak, and it's fat soluble, right? And its main purpose is responsible for the intestinal absorption of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. It's very important because these are essential elements that we need within our diet. So you have to pretty much have it. But vitamin D is very, very crucial. So if you're having calcium deficiency, it's normally linked to vitamin D. What we're also going to learn later on in this episode is how vitamin D can work very, very well during the pandemic for coronavirus. There's been many studies. There's no claim of any cure for it. But what they are saying is that this can be a very good prevention due to studies as far back as the 1930s, where they discussed respiratory diseases and how vitamin D may be linked to respiratory diseases. So it's very, very important that we understand that. It's also function as a hormone, a switch that occurs when your body absorbs vitamin, right? So that means it acts as a messenger to your metabolism. So that's very, very important for us to understand. Now, how we came about to understand vitamin D was because of rickets. So in the 19th century, a gentleman called Sir Edward Mellanby was investigating the growth of rickets in England. And he was just trying to understand what was going on. Was it just from the food? He established early that his dietary um, means it was linked to your diet. So he went to further on his studies, and in his studies, he found out that actually he thought it was vitamin A deficiency that was causing rickets. That was the original concept, right? He thought vitamin A was causing the rickets, but in actuality, it wasn't vitamin A. Upon his study, he realized even in the absence of vitamin A, it did not get rid of the rickets, even if you added vitamin A. So he found out it was a new vitamin that they called vitamin D. Now, vitamin D, is such an important. We need it. 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 Without vitamin D, we will struggle with our immune system, with our respiratory. We'll struggle with our bones, muscles. We'll struggle with a lot of things. So you definitely need vitamin D. Now, there's a group of vitamin D. There's vitamin one, two, three, four. So, but the main two vitamins D's that we need to discuss is vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. So, vitamin D2 and vitamin D3 are both calcifediols. So they raise the general calcifediol levels in the body, right? So this group, also known as calcifediols, vitamin D2 is obtained through plants. So dietary, if you're a vegetarian like myself or you're plant-based, vitamin D2 will be what you'll be getting from plant-based meals or vegetarian meals as we know it. But the problem with that is that vitamin D2 does not raise the overall vitamin D levels in the body. It doesn't, give you adequate amount for you to be optimal. So what you need is a vitamin called vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is the optimal vitamin that you need that's going to help you in your optimal health with your immune system and everything. So, and vitamin D3 is made on the epidermis level when UV ray lights hit, your skin, right? So that's sunlight. So when sunlight hits your skin, you convert a lot of that cholesterol into vitamin D in the skin. So, but you convert vitamin D3, right? So it's very important for you to understand vitamin D2 or vitamin D3. Now, vitamin D3 is the main vitamin D that you need. Everybody needs that. That is the vitamin D. So you need about 50 plus, 50 nanomoles plus of vitamin D to be healthy. If you start having between 70 and 100, then you can start finding yourself being able to be at, very optimal health with your immune system. And also, they can use that for cancer patients. They can use it to treat heart disease and respiratory diseases and so forth. They also did a study in Japan to study if vitamin D deficiency was linked to influenza amongst school children. So they started to find out like vitamin D can be a very massive prevention for rickets, influenza virus, and stuff like that, because it stops the replication of the virus inside the cell. Because it is a hormone, it can get into the nucleus of the cell and stop that replication, right? So it's very, very important for us to understand that. Now, your immune system, found in the lymphoid lineage, vitamin D may also increase antimicrobial peptides in humans, right? So this is very important because now in your innate immune system, right? So your monocytes and your neutrophils, these will be key in the fight against COVID-19 in general, right? So your neutrophils and your monocytes. But if you have vitamin D, they help these cells fight off COVID-19. So it's very, very important. There's lots of information on this. We've been studying respiratory diseases, and since because COVID-19 attacks your respiratory, we know that vitamin D3 is a very massive. It influences the prevention of, or it will alleviate the symptoms of respiratory diseases. And in this case, it's something that people should have more of because the vitamin D3 will help the respiratory tract function a lot more better. So it's very, very important that we understand it. Now, the older you get, the less vitamin D your body stores, right? Now, it's very important for us to understand also that because it's a fat soluble vitamin and stores itself in adipose tissue, big people that are obese will find themselves vitamin D deficient because they won't have bioavailable vitamin D floating around. They have it all stored in their fat cells. So they found that there's a link between vitamin D deficiency and obesity. That's why a balanced diet is very helpful. You got to stay in front of the sun as much as possible. If you're not, you supplement vitamin D3. Now, you supplement vitamin D3 if you are plant-based or vegetarian because you cannot get it from plant-based source. You cannot get vitamin D3 from plant-based source. You can only get it from meat, fish, shellfish, and stuff like that. Salmon and all that kind of stuff like that. You get vitamin D3 from that. But you have to supplement it or go into the sun, right? Vitamin D3 if you're plant-based or if you're vegetarian. Because if you're a plant-based vegetarian, you're going to get most of your vitamin from the plants. It'll be vitamin D2. So you need to understand the difference. Vitamin D2 is what plant-based people get, vegetarians, vegans, and vitamin D3 is everyone else can get a bit of that from eating meat and so forth. But if you're a vegetarian, you have to supplement it or find yourself in the sun, okay? Now, some food sources for people that want to know, okay, so where can I get it if I'm not a vegetarian or plant-based? You can get it from fish. You can get it from egg yolks, fortified plant-based beverages, fortified milk and dairy products. But that sounds disgusting. So I'm not really into all of that stuff, but I supplement it with vitamin D3. There is no general consensus about the best supplement for vitamin D3. So you kind of have to just tap into it. Most companies that make vitamin D3, the less other things they have inside it, the better. So it should just be more just vitamin D3 and probably one or two other agents in there. So that's very, very important for us to have, you know what I mean? But you need average above 50 nanomoles of vitamin D3 to be classed as healthy. Is very, very important for us to understand that. Now, another thing that's very important for us to understand is that in acute respiratory illness, when they did the studies in Japan, in Germany, the original study was in Germany, they found out that, okay, cool, well, this thing does help, from a respiratory point of view. And to find out even that it's a hormone and a steroid, when we were taught in school, we wasn't taught that it was a hormone and part of a steroid group, that it's a steroid derivative. We wasn't taught that. We were just taught that vitamin D is something you get from the sunlight, but it gets more complicated, obviously, as you go ahead and you go into the universities and study all these kind of things. One thing also I would like to let people know about vitamin D is that if you're deficient in it, joint pains, problems was the first thing. Your cracking of your knuckles and joints often. When you just make a move and then all of a sudden you cracking this and you cracking that. You know what I mean? Like for no reason, you just might just get up and just be like, oh, it's cracking. Why am I cracking that for? So it's very important for us to understand that, in all honesty, supplement it. And if you're not supplementing, get some sunlight. It's very, very important for us to get vitamin D, especially at a time like this. It would make sense why the colder regions of the world have been suffering longer from the pandemic than warmer climates. It makes sense, when it's the COVID-19 cannot survive in heat and stuff like that. But for the most part, when it comes to vitamin D, it's something we should be supplementing daily. We need it daily, 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 and daily, right? We need enough of it. I always get people that ask me, like, how long should I be out in the sun? And I always tell people, well, it depends on your skin color. It really does, because everybody can't be in the sun at the exact same period of time and then get the exact amount. That's not true. So to explain that further is like, if you are of Caucasian descent or you're very, very light skin, you could be in the sun for 10, 15 minutes and get some good vitamin D, right? Some people say 10, 15 minutes. I personally think at least 20 minutes spent in there. But for carcinoma and all these kind of things and skin cancer and stuff like that, melanoma, you want to be careful if you're Caucasian to be on the sun for too long. It can be very dangerous because these UV radioactive rays cause DNA damage. So 10, 15 minutes is what they recommend. If you of African Caribbean descent or dark complexion, you want to be in the sun for 20 to 30 minutes. Why do I say that? Now, the darker you are is what I'm talking about, 20 to 30 minutes. If you're light skin complexion, or if you're just my complexion, be in the sun for 20 to 25 minutes is fine. If you're lighter than me and you're light skin, then you don't want to be in the sun too long is a problem. But if you're darker skin, you want to stay in the sun for 30 plus minutes if you're really dark. Why is that? Because melanin, slows down the process of making vitamin D, because it's protecting you from the UV ray lights. So you need to spend more time. You need more time in the sun to get the adequate amount of vitamin D. Vitamin D is also linked to our mental health as melanated individuals. So it's very important that we get a lot of vitamin D in us. And if you are in the diaspora and you're in places where it's cold, then you could just, supplement that, like I mentioned earlier, by, choosing vitamin D3. So that's very, very important. And another thing to understand about vitamin D is that it's such a interesting hormone because it's not part of the endocrine system in any shape or form. Obviously, because you don't make vitamin D without external factors such as UV ray lights or diet, or you supplement it. So even though it's classed as a type of hormone, and because it's a hormone, I mentioned earlier that it can get into the nucleus of the cell. A lot of other minerals can't get into the nucleus of the cell. It will go into the cytoplasm or be absorbed by the mitochondria or stuff like that for energy or whatever the case may be. But very rarely do minerals and certain vitamins get into the nucleus of the cell. And a healthier cell is, the much more healthier you are as a person. So it's very, very important that we take that on board. If you want to be very, very, very healthy, you need to be able to get enough sunlight, be outside, be outdoors, be able to work out, be able to eat a balanced diet, because they also try and tell you, like, you should just be on this diet, this Atkins diet or this weight loss diet and all these diets. Diets are a very, very tricky thing, but you need specific amounts of minerals, micronutrients and macronutrients inside your diet on a regular basis. So You need your water-soluble vitamins, which you need a lot of every day. You got your fat-soluble vitamins and like vitamin D that you need. So an example of why things like vitamin D is also super powerful, super very important, is that if you've got, you can be eating stuff that has calcium in it, phosphate, and all this type of stuff, right? So if you don't have vitamin D, your body can barely absorb that. And if you don't have omega-3 as well, you struggle to absorb calcium. You see, nature likes to work in a group, right? Nature is grouped. So it needs one thing in order to activate another thing. So you might, enzymes and cofactorial enzymes, you need enzymes to help metabolism. So everything needs each other. It's very important for us to really, take that stance on nature. And if you're trying to take a holistic approach to health, then it's important that you understand that your body will take time to process things. So, if you're eating a lot of junk, just taking a vitamin D supplement is not going to help do much. Yes, you might get it in your system, but with refined sugars and other things can really, slow that process down or interfere with that process. So make sure that when you are supplementing this food is in line with a balanced diet. Don't let people tell you you just need to eat, leaves and veggies all day. So let me speak to my vegetarians out there. As a vegetarian myself, before you make that, and if you're new or you're thinking about turning into transitioning into vegetarianism, what I would say is educate yourself. It's very important. You got to educate yourself first. That's very, very key. You cannot be out here not educating yourself, okay? Because you're going to transition to plant-based and find yourself anemic. You're going to find yourself anemic. You'll find yourself having health issues, all these things. And then some people lose faith in being plant-based and vegetarian. They think it's a hoax and they think it's this, and they'll be on YouTube. You can find people on YouTube. They'll have like 1 million videos on why vegetarianism is a hoax and veganism is a hoax. I was a vegan for 6 months and I was sick throughout and all these kind of things. So hate veganism and hate vegetarianism. But in reality, that's not the case. They just wasn't educated. So they were making themselves sick because people assume if you're a vegetarian or if you're a vegan, that automatically you're healthy, which is the biggest lie ever. Like automatically you're healthy. You're not healthy automatically just because you're vegan or you're vegetarian. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to educate yourself on a balanced diet. You still need a balanced diet. In a lot of my programs, I preach about mindfulness. It's very important that we understand mindfulness, because mindfulness means that we are making adjustments based on nutritional content of our food. We're looking at how our food is sourced, so we make sure we're getting the best version of it. Make sure we're preparing our food, we're focused on it, so we don't have this unhealthy relationship to food. So it's very important that if you are considering going plant-based and stuff like that, that you understand, because you might end up being iron deficient and vitamin D deficient. Do you understand what I'm saying? 25% of the world's population is iron deficient. Heme iron is the most important form of iron, but you can't get that from plant-based food. Do you understand what I'm saying? You get that from meat, chicken, and stuff like that, or you supplement it, right? So if you're not supplementing it, then you're going to be deficient in iron, almost guarantee it, right? So it's very important that you understand that. And if you're plant-based as well, even things like vitamin A, you might struggle with because you end up having beta carotenes from plant-based source. Do you understand what I'm saying? And beta carotene is not exactly vitamin A. It has to be converted into vitamin A within the body. Now, depending on your epigenetics and all this kind of stuff, you may not convert enough to the adequate levels you need, and you might not be even eating enough vitamin A. Do you understand what I'm saying? So important that we understand and we educate ourselves on how to properly diet something, on how to properly go about it. Don't just jump out the window and just say, hey, I'm a vegetarian or a vegan, so, I'm going to be healthy from henceforth. You still need to study. You still need to have a look at, okay, what are alternatives? Make sure I get all my nutrients in. And you need about, 111 to 114 or something like that, around that ballpark. You need about that to be classed as healthy. So look at the food you eat. Are you going to get 100 and something minerals if you're eating fast food all day? That is completely devoid of any nutritional value. No, you're not. So you're going to have to mix it up a little bit. Okay. So that's very, very important. Another thing to understand as well is that if you can get to a hot country at least for one weekend every 2 months or something like that, I just think, especially people of color, you need to find sunlight as much as possible. It is very, very important. It's you just need it. Now, the smallest quantum unit of light is called photon. Right now, biophotons do multiple things. Yes, they help us create vitamin D3 in the epidermis. Yes, they do that, but they it also regulates melatonin and serotonin in the body. When you have those biophotons hit your body, you stimulate melatonin, you stimulate melanin production, which is very, very important because vitamin D and melatonin are linked, and serotonin are linked, right? Melatonin and serotonin are hormone derivatives of melanin. All right. It's very important to understand this. If you want to know more about this, you can buy my book from the melanineffect.co.uk. I speak about this extensively about the effects of melanin, and it's linked to nutrition. It's very important for us to understand that. Now, if you're not getting enough sunlight, you're going to disturb your melatonin and your body clock, right? Or known as your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is based on your internal body clock, or the study of that is called chronobiology. Everything in nature has a body clock, by the way, too. Like everything in nature has a body clock. From bacteria to the birds of the sky, to the animals in the sea, to the animals on land, to insects, to human beings, we all have internal body clocks that determine when we sleep, when we wake up, when we have sex, when we eat, when we do anything, and that body clock is linked to the celestial, to the movement of our earth, moon, and sun. Now, it's very important. Some people are like, well, I don't believe that, like how our body's not linked to that. This is all biochemical actions in our body. But the female monthly cycle is proof of that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Which was known as the moon cycle once upon a time. And the moon, how we move around the galaxy, all of that influences what happens on Earth. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's very important for us to understand that. There is science to back this, in biophysics, you know what I mean, which is a branch of biology that it's very, very important for people to tap into, because it discusses human beings on a subquantum level, on an atomic level, and we start to understand energy, and that we are all energy, and how you feed that body energy, because without energy you'll be dead. So it doesn't matter what you're taking in, it is about energy. How we even define food is based on energy and nutritional value at best, and help us metabolize things. But food can be described by your nutrition, by its nutritional content. If you don't have enough, if a food that's void of all nutritional content is not food. One of the misconceptions or misconceptions of the word junk food is that there is such a thing. There's either junk or there's food. There's no such thing as junk food, right? Because it's an oxymoron. So food requires nutritional content for it to be valued as such. But junk is void of all that. It's high in sugar and fats and everything else like that. Zero nutritional value. So it can't be classed as a form of food. But due to mass marketing and all these companies, fooling us for years, like how they did with milk, and told us that it's part of our fiber day, and find out that cow's milk actually robs you of calcium. Instead of telling you drink milk for calcium, actually without vitamin D, you're going to have no calcium, right? So without vitamin D, you're going to have no calcium anyway. So it's important for us to understand that the proper science is that's involved in how nutrition works. And there's so much information out there, and it can be very confusing, and it can be very misleading too. People tell me all the time that, Joe, look, there's so much information out there. We don't know what's what. Like 1 minute it's saying this and it's contradicting this. And it's only within the sciences that we can see really the truth, and we can start to understand exactly what this thing is doing. So what I would say to people is go and look into, nutrition on a surface level. I'm not telling you to go become a nutritionist. I'm just saying to look at it on a surface level. Just wrap your head around some basic concepts and how all these vitamins work, especially how vitamin D impacts you. So if you are struggling with getting enough vitamin D in your diet and you are vegetarian, like I said, get vitamin D3 into you. Vitamin D2 is a whole nother scenario. I promise you, it's a whole nother scenario. You won't get enough of vitamin D2 from plants anyway. And even if you do, and don't let nobody as well, sorry, before I even going forward to that, don't let nobody try and tell you, here's a vegan vitamin D3 situation. Like, you're not going to find a vegan vitamin D3. You're just not. Sorry. You're just not. And when you see people say vegan vitamin D3, they're talking about algae. I really, really put my money on it's a probably form of algae. The problem with that is that you won't get enough vitamin D3 in that algae anyway, because you'll probably get 0.001% of vitamin D3. It's not really the best form of vitamin D3 to have. And my only problem with algae is that algae house a lot of metals. So, algae will bind to a lot of toxic metals in the sea. So with all the pollution in the sea and stuff like that, or just toxic things floating in the sea. Algae is a sponge. It will sponge a lot of that toxic metals in. So I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'm still doing research on sea moss as well. I love sea moss, and it's packed with a lot of nutrients, as they say, but I'm still doing research on it. It's a hype behind it. But some have suggested that sea moss doesn't carry all that extra nutrients, and that it can even be a slight danger. But we're still looking for more, clinical studies on CMOS to try and understand how good is this thing for you. So the thing about science is that it tells you to always question, never sit on one fact. Always question and push the boundaries of the fact of whatever you think is true. And it's not for you to look at, okay, cool. Some people out there, I get it, and be like, oh, bruv, if CMOS is dangerous, then bruh, then I don't trust nothing. Then all hope is lost. Like, like don't be so melodramatic. No, it just means that do your diligence. You just got to look around into it. Once upon a time, I was saying to people like, yeah, CMOS is great, but upon further constant studying, I'm realizing like, no, it's not actually. It might be actually harmful. It might be dangerous, but we're looking into it. Same thing like spirulina. Come to find out, spirulina has a lot of toxic metals in there that's not good for people at all. I mean, if you grow your own algae, which you can, then maybe the situation is different. But who knows? It's science is a constant approach of methodical and observational confirmations by just keep doing the studies, keep reading, start to understand, okay, this is what's good for the body and this is what's not good for the body, right? Sorry, I'm drinking a lot of water, which you should, by the way. Stay hydrated. It's very, very important. So yeah, you're listening to the Melanin Effect, the Joe Dash Effect. See, I'm so used to saying Melanin Effect, right? So people that know me know that I wrote a book called The Melanin Effect. It's out, available on Amazon, and also at the melanineffect.co.uk. So it's always at the forefront of my mind. So yeah, so please understand that you can get lots of vitamin D from the sun, but also make sure you supplement it so you get enough as well. So this is a Joe Dash Effect podcast, healing on everything, discussing vitamin D and how to get it. Vitamin D3 for plant-based people, you're gonna have to supplement or get sunlight. And the vitamin D you're getting really from plants is vitamin D2. It's not enough to raise the overall calcifediol levels in the body. So you want to take time and get that vitamin D3 into your system. Is very, very important. Follow me at joe.dash on Instagram as well, the Melanin Effect store on Facebook. Get in touch with your questions and so forth. And also, if you've got a phenomenal health story that you want to tell, my podcast is open to everybody out there. If you've got an amazing health journey that is inspiring, that can give people some information, then I want to hear from you as well. It's very important. To each one, teach one. You don't expect a lot of celebrities on my podcast. That it's not about that. It's great conversations on healing, but you will find people that are in the health industry, from scientists to fitness people to nutritionists to regular people who struggled with food addiction to people who create amazing food alternatives to help people in their health. Is very, very important. I will be doing Instagram lives too and putting on courses in 2021. So I'm looking forward to people really, really getting involved and getting engaged into healing, how we heal, especially from mental health, spiritual people. I'm going to have them all on the podcast. So support me, share a friend, tell a friend to tell a friend. Is very, very important that we keep health at the forefront of people's mind, especially during this pandemic, how to stay healthy, stay fit. Because if you're not staying healthy and staying fit, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because all that genetic inheritance that you got from your parents, you're squandering that by just not, working out and not eating properly. It's very important that you take the time to eat properly, because if you don't eat properly, then you're going to meet disease very, very, very soon. You know what I mean? So it's very, very important that we get to understand that. So it's been great. Much love. Share, like, download, get involved in the podcast. I've got so many great guests this season that I can't wait to share with everyone. So it's been great. Joe Dash, mind, body, soul, check 1, 2. I'm in my zone. Thank you for sticking around. Peace, love, and light.